So a lot of communication between couples really goes off the rails through one simple bad habit, and that is the failure to listen properly.
So how do you actually listen to each other? We think we listen with our ears, but actually we listen with our heart. The trick of listening is to actually firstly just set aside whatever's happening in your head. If Francine's trying to share something with me that's challenging or difficult to hear, then I can spend all my time preparing my rebuttal. That's not listening. Right? I'm not hearing, I'm not trying to understand. So the first thing we have to do is unclutter. Just clear our mind of what's going on and just focus on what is she trying to tell me? What is she trying to say? And it mightn't be coming out that clearly. So I really have to concentrate. I really have to learn. I have to listen quite and hear what's behind the words she's saying.
So the second step really then is to make sure that we're understanding properly what the other is trying to communicate, because sometimes it'll be a little bit messy or a little bit confused. And so as the listener, I need to make sure and test that what I'm hearing and what I think I'm understanding is actually the correct interpretation. So I can go back to Byron and ask him questions like, well, what I think you're saying is, X, Y, Z. And that gives him the opportunity to confirm whether my interpretation is correct or to adjust it if it's incorrect.
Every married couple's had this experience where they've said something to the other person where they've been very clear and the other person heard something completely different. If you don't go back and play back what you think you heard, you miss the opportunity of actually getting that connection. And of course the conversation just goes off in different directions immediately, and that's where a lot of hurt can come about. So the real trick of listening to each other, which is half of the battle of communication, is somebody has to hear what's being said, is to become like a detective. My wife's trying to tell me something. What is she really saying? I hear the words, but what's the meaning behind it? What's the story behind it? Why is this such a strong issue? Where's this energy coming from? And the best way to do that is not to interrogate it like the police, but rather interrogate it like an inquiring lover. I think I understand that, but just help me understand it a little bit more. And so one of the big insights for us is that when we communicate, we spend too much time both speaking with neither of us doing enough listening. And it's the same message that we take from, I think, the church when it comes to prayer. Our prayer life too often is speaking to God, whereas the real insight is to listening to God's word. Well, God placed this woman in my life. And so my calling and interpretation on that is to listen and try to understand what her words are telling me, because in some ways that's also God speaking to me.
St. Pope John Paul II talked about being a total gift of self, and really as couples, that's what God calls us to be, is to be give ourselves totally to each other. And one of the best and most fundamental ways we can do that for each other is to listen with our whole selves and to be fully attentive.